And
Have there been any changes to the schedule?
sorry.
Have there been any changes to the schedule?
Stay there on the microphone. Use your
Has there
time.
been any changes to the schedule? No. So the schedule, the infrastructure delivery plan was published to accompany Reg 19 March 2025. So that remains the infrastructure delivery plan. If there is any additional information, obviously we'll update it. It is essentially a live document. Your original question was about the SIL. So this went to Cabinet on Monday night. So what Cabinet have essentially agreed is an in principle support for continuing to work on the community infrastructure levy. So the work that's going on behind the scenes is to really look at the viability of the community infrastructure levy. And as you say, this is a really, really big topic at the Charnwood local plan. And, we're all obviously really keen to ensure that we've got all the information that we need. So what's happening is a piece of work to look at viability of the community infrastructure levy with a view to then identifying what would be an appropriate charge on the community infrastructure levy. So it's called a charging schedule. And what's being undertaken is work to identify what is an appropriate charge, because obviously what we don't want to do is to be charging developers a price which makes schemes unviable and makes the district unable to be developed within because the SIL is simply too high. So it's a really careful balance between making sure it's affordable on the one hand and making sure it serves to make sufficient provision towards the infrastructure needs that we identify. So that work is ongoing. Once it's completed, what we'll do is bring that back then to Cabinet for consideration prior to public consultation. So there is a very similar process to the local planning process in place for the introduction of the SIL. So there's more background work going on. Then there'll be consideration by Cabinet, and subject to that, then there'll then be public consultation and then an examination. So it mirrors essentially the local planning process.
If I could just come back with that, what I would wish you to note is the fact that you haven't got a coherent infrastructure plan, and so we haven't got any costs, all subject to scope and scale, absolutely meaningless.
But that gentleman there again, like I said to Mr. Winham, that is exactly a matter for the examination. So that's for the inspector. If the council submit the plan, as I've said so many times, hope that we do, that the council does, that's for the examination to consider. That with the inspector.
But in answer to the gentleman's question, you believe it is?
Chairman, I believe it is. Plan making is complex, really complex. We're working with many partners, many moving parts. So it's a product that's as good, as the chairman has said several times tonight, that can be as good as possible. But the last local plan, no local plan is probably ever perfect. But that's not the job of the inspector or the job of the planning process. The job of the planning process is to put in place a sound plan. A plan that can be found sound. There will always be opinions and different things you can do it with it. So that's how a planning process works. It's about whether it's sound. There could be alternative strategies. There could be probably 2 or 3, 4 alternative strategies that you can employ. We're working with them on their concerns, and we're working to ensure that they are satisfied with that plan. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, right. So I'd now like to move on to item 5. We're not an island. We have to work within the Leicestershire housing market area, which covers the city and the other 6 districts. And Rob is now going to take us through where we are with the housing distribution paper.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Chair. This
item, just important to be really clear on it. It doesn't directly affect the draft local plan, and I'll come on and explain why. But it is a new housing distribution paper. We've got one already from 2022 that covers Leicester and Leicestershire and deals with Leicester's unmet need from that time. So just want to be really clear that the housing distribution paper, the new 2025 one, which is likely to be published by fairly soon for some authorities, are more reliant on it than others, and doesn't directly affect this local plan, but it has massive potential to cause confusion when it is published. So it's important members are aware of it and how it affects us to a certain degree. So I just want to start off with a context which is changing a lot. We're in a massive period of transition in the planning system, new NPPFs, new planning system coming into force in 2027. So I'll go through that and then explain what the new apportionment of Leicester's new unmet need is using through the 2025 distribution paper. Again, important to emphasise our plans based on the 2022 one. So it's not directly affected by this, but members need to be aware of it. So we've got a distribution paper from 2022 that has supported Charnwood's local plan, which was adopted. I think it was as recently as last week. The city's local plan, their examination is either at an end or very close. They're expecting an inspector's report very soon. But it also supports our local plan and Melton's. That is based on the 2023 NPPF. Since that paper was published, we've had a new 2024 National Planning Policy Framework, which is what the NPPF stands for. That moved the goalposts in terms of housing need. As the director mentioned previously, housing need has gone up significantly. So when the government published that document at the end of 24, housing need changed. And what that means is that some authorities now need a new housing distribution paper to deal with the new figures, and authorities particularly reliant on that. The Blaby District Council, Oby and Wigston, Hinckley and Bosworth, and North West Leicestershire. Extremely complex this, and I've tried to make it as simple as possible because there's so many moving parts to it. It's not a situation caused by Leicester and Leicestershire. There's a lot of changes going on in the planning system at the moment, and how it feeds through to individual authorities varies quite a lot. So in terms of how authorities are affected by all of these changes, it really depends on the stage that they're at in plan making and what date they get to certain stages, and that affects whether you're in the current or the old system, or whether you're in the new system, and which national planning policy framework the plan will be considered against. So the first key date was the 12th of March 2025, where if an authority reached the Regulation 19 consultation, which was the consultation we did at the started at the start of March, then you're in the current system, or the old system as it's now being referred to, and your plan will be examined on the NPPF from December 2023. And the housing figures associated with that, because at the time the standard methodology was different, and I'll come on and explain what the figures are in a moment. So for authorities that didn't meet that March deadline, but are looking to submit a plan before the end of this year, then they're under the same system as us, but their plan will be considered against the new NPPF from 2024, and therefore the new housing figures for each of those authorities. And then I guess there's the new system. The final call for plans submitted under the current system, or the old system as it now seems to be referred to more commonly, is the 31st of December. So if authorities don't submit a plan by then they're under the new planning system, and the government's currently consulting on a new NPPF that they expect to publish later this year. So there'll be a new system and a new national planning policy framework. So just to be really clear, Harborough is in the green row at the top, and therefore our plan is based on the June 2022 housing distribution paper. For the authorities in the middle band, that is Blaby, Oadby, Northwest and Hinkley and Bosworth, their plans will need to be informed by the housing distribution paper that I'm going to explain to you today, just so you're aware of the content of it, because people could quite easily get confused that that there's a change and we need to change our plan to accommodate that. And then for plans submitted under the new system, the bottom row 2027 onwards, the new system includes I guess they're looking to reintroduce strategic planning, which I guess disappeared when the East Midlands Regional Plan went back in 2013. So the idea there is that it will cover a larger area. My personal view is it will probably be Leicester, Leicestershire and or Rutland, but that's all to be decided. It's well out of my control. And the strategic development strategies are then responsible for the higher level decisions, whereas at the moment what we have is, or we have had obviously the duty to cooperate, but the requirement for us to work jointly to apportion where housing goes. So that's the context that we're in. We're very much in the green one and the current 22 distribution paper, but I'm just going to explain to you what the November 25 one says.
Can I just ask a question, please? Chairman, can I just ask, because
Yes.
so if everything goes to just reiterate, we're in the green. If anything goes pear-shaped, right, just in the worst case scenario, and we are going to submit under the old system, but after the 12th of March, anytime before the 31st, we have to use the new. So sorry, no, hang on, let me try again. We are in the green in the old system, and if we submit by March, as we anticipate, yes. So if anything goes wrong and it goes to December, we're submitting then under the old system, but we have to use the new housing numbers. Yes.
One, we have to use the new housing numbers. Two, we may as well throw this plan in the bin because we'll have to start again.
Right. So the whole thing has to be started again. We can't just submit the same plan with just.
Well, I'll ask the director to clarify that basically, my understanding is we wouldn't just have to go back to Reg 19. We have to go back to Reg 18.
Clarify this to me.
We have to go back to Reg 18 which is pretty much starting again, isn't it?
Like,
Yeah.
clarify this, please.
So the plan we've got,
Yeah.
we worked hard for about a year. Sorry, my voice has gone a bit croaky. We worked hard to meet that deadline of the 12th of March 2025. That was the deadline we needed to publish a plan by to be able to proceed under the December 2023 NPPF.
Yeah.
So the plan we have now is the plan we need to submit if we want to stay in that green band.
Yes.
If we don't stay in that green band, if we change the plan too much, if we add sites in or take sites out or so on and so forth,
Yeah.
we would be taking what the plan would need to start again because it wouldn't be the same plan. So if we did that, we would have to move on to
The yellow.
band as of today.
Yes.
The government are consulting on a new NPPF as we speak, the
Yeah.
December TBC 2026. So if that was in place by the time we did that,
Yes.
we would be in the red band. And we would be going under the housing numbers that Rob is talking about now.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that much. Just wanted it clarified. Thank you, Rob.
Major. Let's just clarify, is this the same as the report that went to the cabinet last week? The same information? It's already in the public domain, this housing distribution paper last week. Is this the same report?
Council, yeah, that some other councils around Leicester and Leicestershire are already publishing this for their
Yeah, it
cabinets.
went to cabinet last week at Campton.
Yeah,
Oh,
but there is a sequence of councils taking it to their public cabinets, yeah,
That's great.
including, a
Yeah.
number of districts and the county council.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks for clarification. Thank you.
Carry on, Rob.
No, thanks, Chair. I appreciate this. It's really complex. It's complex for planners. I don't think we've ever had a situation as complex as this. So it is difficult to follow. So yeah, the bottom line is if we submit this plan this year, then we remain under the 23 MPPF and the 22 housing distribution paper. And obviously, what I'm going to talk to you about today is the updated distribution paper. So, in terms of redistributing unmet housing need, the starting point is the local housing need calculations. There's a table there with the actual detailed figures in. And what I've got on this graph is for each authority in Leicester and Leicestershire, what the old figures are, i.e. the figures that Harbour is using in its plan, which is the dark columns, and then the lighter columns are what the new housing figures are under the latest MPPF, the MPPF 2024. So I think the key takeaway for me here is if we look at, just to be clear, there's a lot of we've had to shorten the authorities there. So just to be clear, BDC, that's Blaby District. Then we're on to Charnwood Borough, Harbour District, Council, Hinckley and Bosworth, Melton Borough, Oadby and Wigston Borough, Northwest Leicestershire, and then the final column on the far right is the city, i.e. Leicester City. So the key takeaway for me there, anyway, just looking at the figures, is that Leicester City under the old MPPF had a really high housing need. Under the new MPPF, it's substantially lower. Probably, I was just looking at it by about 800 homes a year lower, which if you extrapolate that out over 10, 15, 20 years, it amounts to thousands of homes potentially. The flip side of that, though, is if you look at all the districts, apart from Charnwood, the housing need has gone up substantially. So if we look at Harbour, currently we're working on a need of 534. That's what the local plan contains. The new need 735 homes per year. I think the biggest increase proportion is probably Oadby, where their housing need has more than doubled. So a huge jump there. So the figures are the figures, and that's what the government methodology, that we have to follow the methodology, and that's what they are. So just important to do a quick comparison there. So the new housing distribution paper dealing with the city's unmet need covers a different period to the 2022 one, as you'd expect, has a base date of 24 and goes out to 2046 to cover the various plan periods that authorities are working to. Some are staying, some are up for 2042, some are looking for longer plan periods. So the city's unmet need is calculated. There's a lot of detail based in terms of the city's capacity based on their current local plan, which they're expecting the report from the inspector any time. So obviously many years worth of work and a huge amount of detail, including through the examination. Post 2036, there's quite a large degree of uncertainty is what I would say. So there's been an estimation of their capacity for the post 2036 period, and I would expect that my personal views, I suspect that will change and evolve as once the city adopt this plan and start preparing a new one. Obviously it takes a number of years to do that. So the estimated unmet need from the city is just over 10,000 homes between over the 22 period from 24 to 46. Just to compare that to the unmet need in the 2022 paper, that's a 21-year period from 2020 to 2041. The unmet need there is about 19,000 homes. So you can see quite a big drop. It's not directly comparable because we've got different time periods that we're looking at, but effectively a huge drop of what's that, 89,000 homes effectively in terms of their unmet need, with more work to be done. So that's the challenge for the 2025 housing distribution paper is where's that accommodated in Leicestershire. The approach, I'm not going to dwell on the methodology too much, it's very similar to the approach that was taken in 2022. It's largely based on the functional relationships that each of the districts have with the city. It looks at migration, commuting dynamics, and the strength of the relationship there. and then apportions that figure out across the districts based on that. Oadby and Wigston made a relatively small contribution to unmet need last time because their housing need figures are much higher. As I've said, they're more than doubled. They're not likely to be in a position to be able to meet their own need as well as unmet need from the city. So there's been an adjustment made for that process. They've done a quick check as well of that apportionment process to make sure that there's sufficient housing to meet economic growth in the districts. That's the case, i.e. jobs, basically. So if you've got a large number of jobs and not enough housing, then you might need to increase the number of homes to make sure there's sufficient growth, I guess, in the workforce to support the economy. The only place that applies to is Northwest Leicestershire, which is again is the same last time. They're expecting quite a lot of growth there. So anyway, the outcome of the methodology, which again is very similar to last time, has led to these unmet need contributions. So these are homes per year for each authority. So in terms of numbers, then Blaby District Council, which is the column on the left, 115 homes per year. Charnwood 141. So I mean, the bulk of the heavy lifting really is done by Blaby and Charnwood because they've got the strongest functional relationship with the city. Northwest Leicestershire obviously third at 73 homes, then Harbour at 62, and so on and so forth. So there's three authorities making a bigger contribution than us, two of them substantially more, and Hinckley and Melton making a smaller contribution under this process. But again, just to stress, this is different to and doesn't affect our current plan in the same way as it does to others. So when when we add the unmet need contributions I've just said to the local housing need in the 2024 NPPF, it gives a potential housing requirement for each of the authorities under the new figures, basically. And the figures are there. For Harbour, it gives a figure of 797 homes per year, so 800 homes a year effectively, and you can see how it works through with all of the individual authorities. Our housing requirement is slightly higher than well, I think it's second highest apart from the city, which obviously isn't included in the redistribution process. The reason for that is the bulk of of that need obviously comes from Harbour's need through the new standard methods. So the unmet need contribution is relatively modest compared to what we were having to contribute under the 2022 position. So I'll come on and just explain that. So under the 2025 distribution paper, which again I must stress doesn't directly affect our local plan because of the transitional arrangements, as I explained earlier, we've got a contribution of 62 homes a year. The draft plan at the moment, based on the 2022 position, contribution of 123 homes a year towards the city's unmet needs. So under the 2025 figures, it's effectively halved. The flip side of that, of course, is that under the new figures, Harbour's need is 735 homes per year compared to 534 homes, which is currently in the plan. So, so when you look at it in the round, it leads to quite different figures. So the annual average under the 2025 position is about 800 homes a year, as I've said. When you compare that to the annual average in the draft local plan, the annual average in the draft local plan is 628 homes per year. So it's quite a lot lower than we would need to plan for if we were having to base a plan on this, on the new NPPF and the new housing distribution paper, significantly lower, I guess. But really important to stress that, again, I know I've said it several times, there's massive potential for confusion here when it gets published. Certainly residents could feel that, oh, crikey, we've got to do a plan which contains hundreds or thousands of homes more than the one that we've consulted on. But as I've explained, because of the transition arrangements, we will be examining against the old MPPF from 2023 and the housing figures associated with that, not these new figures, provided, of course, the plan's submitted and we get to the examination. I must caveat that because it's obviously a member decision. That's all, Chair, for me.
Thank you very much, Rob. Yeah, it's not easy, is it, to get a grip, but lowering the city's numbers doesn't necessarily mean that the job's done because of the redistribution that's gone on. We still have to pick that up and deal with it. Councillor King?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Rob. That's what I remember reading from last week of the cabinet papers. Two questions. So first question is, there's a lot of assumptions here. So assuming the report goes forward and goes to the inspector for examination, during the examination or part of that process, can the inspector increase the number and align it to the new objectively assessed need that the government has decided that we need to have? And the Gateway 1 review is the Gateway 1 review that the government's talking about us requiring to have by the end of, I think it's the end of October, is what I read. Is that right? Is that likely to require us to increase the housing number to align with this new required housing number from central government? I'm just trying to understand if there's a risk here that it actually increase anyway, no matter what we put forward. I'm just trying to grateful if you could clarify that point. Through you, Chair.
Yeah, the plan if the council choose to submit the plan, the one we've been talking about tonight, that will be a real plan. It will give the district a full period of protection. The district may come under some pressure later in the normal 5-year period to do a review quite early and quicker than perhaps we have done this time. Difficult to tell, it's speculation. The Gateway 1 is more of a shape options paper, issued options paper as to how we would see the district moving forward in general sort of strategic terms. It would be more of a conversation with the community rather than a new specific draft plan. So I want to stress that the plan we're doing now wouldn't be a waste in many ways. It would be a proper plan that will give us protection, but in parallel there'll probably be some early work during the 5 years of preparing a new plan that I can't get away from saying we'll have to account for those higher numbers unless the government changes its policy.
Yeah, but the Councillor King's specific question was, and I think we're all interested in it, could the inspector on this plan hear those numbers and decide to uplift the numbers?
It would be a matter for the inspector, but my view would be no, because we are clearly, this plan is being examined on the December 2023 MPPF. So it's slightly counterintuitive in some ways that the inspector would need he or she to contain themselves to the rules set down in the December 2023 MPPF, because that's the statutory position under which this plan is being prepared and examined.
So could you just clarify then, David? You said that's your opinion, but factually, is it the case the inspector could increase the numbers if that was their decision that they thought in order to make the plan sound, they would have to be increased? Thank you.
I'm as close as being able to say definitely no, because the plan is being examined on the December 2023 MPPF. So I'm as 99.9% certain that that would be no because of that. I can't speak for the inspector, but I'm not a lawyer either, so that would be my impression.
To add to that and take that forward, if for some whatever reason he or she did do that, they'd have to propose, I'm asking this question, they'd have to propose modifications. And then, as you've said earlier, that would have to go out to consultation. And then it would be a matter for the council whether they accepted them.
Yes, I think it will be a difficult one for the inspector to do that way because we would quite rightly say as an authority, well, we're having our plan prepared and examined under the December 2023 MPPF. I think we would probably have some serious concerns if they were to do that. And that we'd have to look at levers available to us to challenge that if it were to happen. That's why I'm 99% certain that I can't speak for the inspector. I cannot say 100%. You never can in planning. But I'm as certain as I can be that that would not be the case because it's December 2023 we're examining under.
Okay, councillor King.
Yeah, thank you.
Rosita.
Thank you. Hypothetical question here. So with the new MPF, with the new distribution figures, we are now producing our local plan to the old one. As soon as we're finished, we are having to start a new one, no doubt. So we are then most likely going to be in a strategic distribution stage by the time. So hypothetically speaking, how do you think that will affect our housing numbers? Because my little brain works this way. The city has, even so it has got a reduced number by almost half, will never meet that amount. So the unmet need will go up and up and up. We will be assessed by a strategic number. So that means our housing numbers will go up and up and up. So just talk me around that. You know, I mean, it's hypothetical, but so that's question number one. Question number two, I don't think you will be able to answer it either, but why does it always appear? Because we are the second highest number, and when these housing figures are set, because at the end of the day, if you're looking Melton, which borders us virtually, could be doing with additional housing because they could commute. You might say, you know, we have the additional housing numbers because of Magna Park, etc., but it would benefit them economically. So why does Melton always, you know, get zilch? And then let Rob answer that. And then my last question on that same scenario is, forgot now. That would have.
Okay, I'm going to ask Rob to answer that. Can I just make the point that, as was said earlier, on all this, there is this strategic level coming in, which we haven't got the details of.
Yeah.
But the likelihood is that they're going to put Rutland into that. So if that Rutland, bring Rutland into that. So Rutland would then be part of the housing market area. And that would, how shall I put it, it would just give us another authority to help share it.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. There's no easy answer to it. Is my general view. What we've got here is you've got strategic planning coming in for a bigger area that will potentially apportion housing need to areas now that don't exist. So will Harbour exist as an entity for the SDS, the Strategic Development Strategy, to apportion it housing numbers? It may be apportioning it to South Leicestershire, the city and north. It might be apportioning it to the city and Leicester, whatever the geography ends up being. So I think it's very difficult to preempt that process, but it's going to be a huge period of change. And I guess it's very difficult to say exactly what will and will not happen. But one thing I will say, just from my experiences over the last 10, 15 years, is housing need generally only goes one way, in my experience, and that's upwards. If you go back 10 years or so to the core strategy, it was more than 10 years when that was from 2011. Harbour's need was 300 and something homes a year. You know, we're now at 735 under the new standard method. So the need for homes has gone up. There's no signs of that slowing down. Certainly, the latest government policy is we want homes to be built urgently. So that's just my experience generally. How it pans out exactly for this area of Leicestershire, it's very difficult to say. In terms of housing numbers, and Harborough's contribution to unmet need. Harborough's contribution is relatively low, but when you add it to the local housing need figure, it comes out relatively high. The reason for that is because the standard method has two elements in it. One is based on housing stock, so the number of homes in the area, and the second is an affordability uplift. And Harborough is significantly less affordable than a lot of other places in the country and Leicestershire. So, and what the government did when they published the new standard method in 2024, previously the affordability uplift was more moderate. They basically put the affordability uplift on steroids, if you like. So less affordable areas across the country had a huge jump for affordability reasons. Harborough's one of them. There are authorities that had substantially more, particularly in the southeast, where affordability is even more acute. So that's what you see in there in that graph, where Harborough was relatively high with the relatively small unmet need contribution, but the bulk of it's made up by the standard method and a significant affordability uplift.
Can I just come back, Chairman, very quickly? So with the need going up, hypothetically speaking, we're now, remind me that how long it would take us to meet the 5-year housing supply. But as it's going up, and as David says, and as we all know, we permit, but we do not build out. So we can permit until the cows come home, but will we have more and more difficulty in meeting our 5-year housing supply? Which is, your answer is yes, but just talk me around it.
Yes. So obviously, the higher the figure, the more difficult it is to demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply. What this plan will do, though, is fix, if it gets to examination and adopted, will set the housing requirement that we judge the 5-year supply against. It will fix it for a period of 5 years, because the NPPF, well, certainly as drafted at the moment, there could be about 10 different iterations at the rate we're going over the next few years. But certainly as drafted at the moment, it says once you've adopted the plan, you calculate the 5-year supply against the housing requirement in that adopted plan for 5 years. So that's what it says now. And so when the plan comes in place, the housing requirement in the plan will be what we measure it against, not the local housing need figure, which is higher.
Right.
Okay, Rosita,
Yeah, that's.
any other questions from members on this distribution paper? Go through the democratic process. Any questions? Mr. Leonard? Yeah. So thank you for the explanation. I think it's crystal clear. And it's not that really complicated, but I understand once you start to look at the detailed plan, it becomes more complicated. I think that and when I look at the NPPF 25, which has a spatial development strategy approach, which will add a new layer, it will be able to then look at some of the plans that we've been promoting, which is essentially put the housing, the infrastructure already exists, as opposed to putting the housing where it's not. So I think the question really is, what degree of certainty, with the lack of details on budgets for infrastructure, for services and others, as is the case in the current local plan, we can take a view that by letting that plan go through now, we're not going to do more haste, less speed, by having essentially the plan inspector saying, actually, no, this is not going forward, by which time we will spend, what, £2.5 million on trying to ram through something which is ill-conceived. We will then try to fix what's going on in Scotland North, as was indicated earlier. We will try to fix what's happening in Lutterworth East. In the meantime, management will try to then develop and crank up something new strategic development area. To what degree are we certain that by passing this plan, which I'm suggesting we shouldn't, that the plan inspector won't pick holes, which currently are quite large, as identified by the Leicestershire County Council and ourselves?
I don't mind if you guys want to do it. I'll answer it, and if I miss anything, then you can come in. So certainty is very difficult in planning long term, because you're planning 15 years plus into the future, and that's extremely difficult to do. Basically, I think we'd all acknowledge that. There is the possibility that the inspector could, of course, find the plan unsound. That's the possibility with every local plan examination that's ever happened, and it does, and it can happen. My personal experience is, this is just my take, it's not the council's, is that nothing good generally comes from delay in the planning system. The longer you delay doing a plan or making the difficult decisions, you just get overtaken by the industry, which is effectively, it's a market-led system that we're in. So we can't change the system. We don't have the power to do that. You always get uncertainty. So if you look at the 2019 local plan, you're right about the Scratched-off North site. That hasn't come forward as intended. Neither did Lutterworth East. But if you look at what's actually happened, so we adopted the plan in 2019, April 2019, I think, maybe May. Less than a year later, we were in a full lockdown. And what happened, which nobody could foresee, and what effectively happened there, strategic sites across the country really struggled because the plans were based on the viability at a point in time. And what we had was massive post-COVID inflation. In terms of the cost of infrastructure delivery, that everybody knows that. We all feel and have felt the inflation in other areas. So what that's done is it's obviously affected the delivery of those sites, and strategic sites over this period have struggled because of that reason, and others, of course. Every site has its own nuances and issues, but what the plan did was, even despite those sites not coming forward as envisaged, we had a 5-year supply up until December 2024. So a really strong position. For 5 years, the council enjoyed a really strong 5-year supply, very limited speculative applications. Prior to 2019, it was what I can only describe as a bit of a free-for-all, which I suspect, my personal view, is a period that we're going to enter now because of the change in the housing figures. So my answer is that it is always uncertainty. Plans don't have the answer to absolutely everything, and things do change and evolve, and that's what happened here in Harbour, in my view. Other people have a different perspective on it.
Thank you. I think the question for me is, going for a strategic development area with substantive amount of infrastructure that is supposed to be delivered to make it viable when there is no budget. It really is like jumping off the cliff. I think that's the mattress will appear at the bottom of the cliff. Then fixing what you already have, which we heard earlier, is in process. Plus, which is in our Reg 19 submission, going for a more targeted Sheila approach would deliver the numbers, as has been the case since Harbour District Council has been an over-delivering area for some time now. And that is not being considered. And it is beggars belief that here we are again, we go for a third strategic development area, and we have not been able to make the first two that we had work. It is astonishing. And how much money is being spent on this? I look forward to hearing from the Freedom of Information Act query as to how much money is being spent on this. We have gone through the 3,500 and something pages of the local plan submission that we had on the way to Reg 19, and the number of holes in there is aircraft carrier sized, I'm afraid.
Okay.
Chairman. I think just referencing your points there, Mr. Winard, about the numbers that are already in the plan, Lutterworth East, Scratched-off North, things like that mentioned, and fixing those. Those numbers are already banked in the planning system. We can't count them again. So that was to meet the need of the plan we adopted in 2019. I do apologise. They're gone. They're already in the system. We need new numbers. We need to release new land. So just fixing those won't spare us the need for more land. So there's a new plan, new land, and those plans will only develop more. So it's relentless, absolutely relentless. And we're talking now about higher numbers. Rob's talking about higher numbers. Well, we'll have to plan for those, whether they're Harbour or somebody else. There's no free get out of jail card here. We have to keep planning. Delay only kills us. It will absolutely kill us. Because as I was saying in my, sorry about my throat, as I was saying in my statement, even if we don't proceed with the plan, the promoters of land south of Gotcha Road, Urban and Civic, will put a planning application in that the council will have to determine. And if it has no 5-year land supply because it has no plan, it will need to permit it. So having not planning for land south of Gotcha Road doesn't mean land south of Gotcha Road goes away. It's still there. And all the other sites in the plan are too.
With respect, Urban Civic is a company. I went through their accounts. They're talking about several sites, including the Newton Harcourt site, which is right next to it. They're a company. They're there to make money. If the sums do not make sense, they will do exactly what's happening in Scrapton North, which is, sorry, we can't do it. We'll drop section 106. Please drop the affordable housing. We heard that it's important, down from 12% down to 10%. And by the way, the SIL, the reason why we're running now like crazy is because we don't want to pay the SIL on top, which would make the finances even worse. Urban Civic is a company. They're there to make money for their owners and their shareholders. And frankly, for you to go forward, hoping that Urban Civic will actually go on the plans that you currently have, 30% of affordable housing, which contributes, in fact, zero to the SIL, which contributes very little to the profitability, actually contributes zero to the profitability of the developer, is pie in the sky. I don't know. You have to wake up, smell the coffee.
That's the planning system. We've experienced it before. Lutterworth East. We've got policy in the plan, adopted, tested, examined, viable at the time. We've had endless discussions with Lutterworth East about viability, affordable housing, infrastructure. It could well happen again, but we have to plan on the evidence we've got now, Mr. Bernard. You're not telling. I don't think you're telling us anything we don't know. You're not telling us anything we don't know.
There is nearly 15,000 houses in the planning portal at the moment. Yes, 14,500 thereabouts.
I could tell you from experience that doing it by 100 here, 100 there, and trying to stick a proportionate amount on every settlement, you get virtually no infrastructure whatsoever. Yes, you get your sites delivered, but all you do is just keep tacking on 100 there. That we've done that for many, many years. That was fine when we had to deliver, as Rob said earlier, 300. Well, now that's going up, and we know it's going up again. When you start to having to deliver 500, 600, 700 a year, it's not. You can't do it. You have to have some strategic sites.
The strategic sites do not deliver the infrastructure that is required. It is unbudgeted, whether it be for flooding, whether it be for transport, whether it be for services.
Yep.
You do not have any budget for that. So you have a money tree that has no money coming on it.
We're having to do play by the rules and submit the plan by the rules. That, whether it's viable or not, that will be for the inspector to decide. And if you can convince him otherwise, fair enough. But that is the nature of the rules, the planning rules we've got to follow.
But I'm hoping that the public will be able to convince the councillors and the cabinet before then to not go and jump off a cliff. I'm hoping that there will be a mattress left, and I guarantee there won't be one.
Then you will have a planning application anyway.
Which we would be happy to discuss with Urban Civic.
Thank you, Mr. Winard. I think we've covered those items. Now, oh, okay. Well, do you want to just come quickly before I?
Just to note that the large developments that have been put forward in Leicestershire, including 3 in Charborough, have pretty well failed to deliver any infrastructure. In Melton, the county council thought that the developers were going to deliver a northern and southern bypass, and then you have to put a bid in for an eastern one. In fact, what they found is that they got 50 million from the government, and they have to get 160 on 2/3 of the scheme. No sign of the developers wanting to pay for the other third. So the Lutterworth delivered virtually no infrastructure. The bridge over the motorway will end up being paid by the government. So, you know, it's...
You mean Loversthorpe?
Lowestoft, yeah, sorry, did I say Lutterworth?
You said Lutterworth, yeah.
Sorry, Lowestoft, sorry, yes. So, and I mean, what did Lutterworth deliver in terms of infrastructure? There's just no infrastructure coming forward from any sites, large or small. That's why everybody's complaining, because they're just getting the development, and the developers are pulling away, saying, well, viability means we can't pay for affordable housing, we can't pay for this, we can't pay for that. And so you just get the development. Hard luck.
So, drawing along with Scrapped Off North, we dug in and we said it's so hopelessly viable, we couldn't approve it. So we still would have to go through that process. If it became so badly unviable through the circumstances, then my personal opinion, it becomes unsustainable and it shouldn't be approved.
But just one other thing is that the selection of site process was discussed when you come to select sites from the Shellers. It was described as, you've got a good system in place. NPPF is saying that you should be looking for the sustainable locations. And I don't think that in your assessment that you do for picking sites, there's any reflection of whether the location itself is sustainable. I mean, then you don't get the sustainable development either. But if you don't start with sustainable locations, now you could say south of Gartree Road, it could be a sustainable location, but it isn't, because you can't provide any mechanism to get people from it into wherever they want to go to. So there's just it's no more sustainable being on the edge of Leicester than it is being anywhere else.
Thank you for that. Right, we've covered the agenda. Now, we're going to need a comfort break, but before we go into item 6, we will need to go into exempt session. But before we do go to a vote on that, I've been made aware by officers of concerns raised by Mr. Dauncey on behalf of a planning developer with regards to items in the panel considered in exempt. Now, I've raised these concerns. Right, okay. So normally now we have exempt matters to discuss. That is to say, matters where we don't discuss them as an open meeting. But the panel would need to agree to go into closed session. But before we go to a vote on that, I've been made aware by officers of concerns raised by a developer, Mr. Dauncey, with regards to items the panel will consider in exempt session. I've raised these concerns with the monitoring officer, democratic services and planning officers. And I've been reassured that the items can and should be considered in exempt session. And we touched on this earlier. And the fact we're being suggested by a planning developer that we shouldn't go into exempt session, that concerns me greatly. However, ultimately, it is the panel's decision whether to enter into an exempt session. And therefore, the concerns have been shared with the panel in order to take that into consideration tonight. It would require a proposer and a seconder and vote on a resolution. Just before we do that, given the time, I'm conscious that the meeting of the panel is now run for a good period, and we had the planning committee last night and another planning committee tomorrow night. And whilst I appreciate these items are very important, we do have another meeting scheduled for the 19th. So one option would be to adjourn this, go back and the 19th. But if you wish to carry on and do the exempt items subject to going into exempt, that is entirely up to the panel. So do I have a proposer to go into closed session? Councillor Burrell.
And I will second it.
Okay, so we do have that.
Can we also vote on an extension, because I'm very happy to stay another half an hour or whatever to finish this item off.
I don't think
Yes.
I don't think we'll cover everything, but some of it is only part, and we won't have a full information till next week to the 19th. But I do see some sense, given that so much has been said about it, particularly by Councillor King, on having item 7, which is the update on collaboration with partners, which you've raised a number of concerns about. So I do see that it would be good to do that. So Chair, yeah,
In accordance with the council's constitution, we can reconvene the panel at a date to finish the business. If we wanted the meeting on the 19th to be public, we're able to do that under 4.212 of the constitution, the access to information procedures. So what we could do is we could hear item 7 in the exempt session and then reconvene this meeting prior to the meeting on the 19th.
May I make a comment, Chairman? Yes. May I make a comment? Whilst I know some of us have previously objected for some of these items to be held in public session, and there has always been a debate, but I feel that this item we should not succumb to pressure of a developer. And if we do that, we're going to open a can of worms and we will be held to account maybe in other matters. So I'm very happy to support Councillor Burrell to take a vote on us holding this item in exempt session, because I do not want to open a can of worms, because once you open something, you can't close it.
okay. So I'm going to take a vote on that because we can make that decision and then we can decide if you want to go on past 9:30. So can I see all those in favour of going in to exempt? Anyone against? Abstention? Stay. Okay. Right. That is carried. Right. So the next thing is, do you wish to go on past, just while we clear the gallery, do you wish to go on